I've got the passenger side door handle assembly removed from my 2001 BMW Z3. Two reasons I removed this. One reason was the seal that goes between the outside of the door and this trim panel at the handle was all dry rotted. This whole assembly did not have to come out in order to replace this gasket, but I had a second problem with this door handle. The problem with my lock was that with this handle installed and trying to unlock the door, this key would just turn forever and ever and ever, and it would never unlock the door. Of course, now that I've got it out, on occasion it will actually catch. But I swear, when this thing was installed, I could just keep turning the key and it would never lock or unlock from the passenger's door. So I've got this thing removed, and I'm going to show you what the problem is on this. With the door handle installed, sits like this. This is the bottom of my door handle. What happens is there's a spring and a little detent block and a cover plate that falls off. And goes right here where this little T-shaped area is. And what's missing is the cover plate, which holds in a spring, which also holds in a detent block. And it's that detent block being pushed by the spring that allows the lock mechanism to work like it's supposed to work. Now these are the items I was able to recover from inside my passenger's door. And this cover here fits over this opening. There's a spring that goes in there, and then there's this little detent type block. I don't know if the camera's showing it. But inside that circular hole, a small spring is placed, which then puts pressure upwards on the door lock mechanism. I was able to recover these two items inside my inside the passenger's door. What I was missing is I lost the spring. That had fallen out. I was able to take a measurement for the spring. Put this here in the camera where you can see it. I was able to take a measurement for that spring and was able to go online and go to Grainger, and Grainger has a pack of, this is the part number, 10 springs, 10 small springs, and I think they cost me like $8 to $10 for these springs. So I placed them out order. It took me a week to get them in, and I finally got them in, so now I can fix this detent catch that's keeping my key, that's allowing my key to turn continuously without actually unlocking the door. Now the detent block will only go in one way. There's a small ridge on one side of the block. I'm not sure if you can see that in the picture or not. And if you try to put the detent block in the wrong way, and I'm going to try to put it in upside down here, and I try to stick it in, it won't go. I could force it, you could force it, but you don't want to do that. You'll probably never get the block back out again. So when you put it back in, you have to rotate it and make sure that the small ridge is inserted in the right direction. Make sure the open hole is facing towards you. And that's where you can put your spring. So before I install the small detent block, I'm going to put a small amount of grease up inside the slot where that little detent block rides. I'm going to try to not get any grease on the outside of the handle assembly itself. I'm going to put this back together with some adhesive on the outside, some structural adhesive. So I've got a little bit of lube in there and a little bit of lube on the end of my detent block, and then slip the detent block right on in. Sits a little bit recessed. So here's my replacement spring that I got from Grainger's. What I've done is I've rolled two springs together to give it a little bit more stiffness. This spring itself is reasonably stiff for its small size. I've seen where some people have claimed they've taken Bic pens apart and used the springs from a Bic pen. I suppose a spring from a Bic pen would work. My concern would be that the spring isn't stiff enough. So what I've done is I've just rolled two of these springs together and take my handle, take the springs, slip them on in there, and the last thing I'm going to do is I need to put this cover on. and pushing down on it. Bingo, it clipped into place. Now you would think that this thing would have enough tension, or it would clip in sufficiently where it wouldn't pop loose. Well, all I can say about that is, if that were true, I wouldn't be making this video and you wouldn't be watching it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some adhesive around the outside of this. Some JB Weld, or in my case I've got some 3501, which is a structural adhesive that I've gotten from work, an expired tube, and I'm going to use that. But before that takes place, you're going to have to clean the top of this little T cover really good with some acetone, and you're going to have to clean the housing all the way around on the outside here really good with acetone, because JB Weld and structural adhesive does not stick to oil and grease. You can put it on with oil and grease there, but you're pretty much wasting your time. So I've got to clean all that off, get it good and clean, and I'll apply my adhesive over the top of it as a precaution, just to hold this little cover back in. I don't want to have to do this twice. Okay, so I've got my 3M Scotch Weld epoxy adhesive. It's part A and part B. It's 50-50 mix. When you're putting your adhesive down, one of the things, if it's a 50-50 mix, or whatever the ratio is, if it comes in a tube, you can usually guesstimate by eyeball the percentages. So my gob of black part B is about yay long, and my part A, the white stuff, is about yay long, and it's about equal length. That makes it 50-50. So at this point here, just a small screwdriver, and we'll mix them all together really, really good. I've got about a 5-minute work life on this thing, so I'm going to have to kind of go a little bit quick and get this put on, and then kind of push it on down a little to get it looking good to where it's not all hanging, all goppy looking. So here it's mixed. Working on a piece of paper because I don't want to get this all over my kitchen table. My girlfriend would come home and she'd kill me. So then just using a small screwdriver, start applying it over the cover, push it up the sides of the handle. I'm going to make sure I get it all the way around the edges here. I want to kind of make it like a little cover that grasps around the corner on the handle here. But I have to also make sure it gets over the top of that cover in addition to going up the sides. So I'm just not putting it on the top of that cover, I'm pushing it up the sides of the handle. And there we go, working it around. Just smear it on. I don't want to pack it down on the top of the cover, because one of my concerns is I can probably get this stuff to squeeze into cracks, and then it gets down inside the mechanism where the detent is, and then I have other problems. So now that this has been put on, one of the things you can do to kind of pretty it up a little bit is kind of spit a little bit on your finger, and then just kind of smear it down around the sides. Push it down a little bit. If it sticks to your finger, spit on your finger again. I went out of the picture there. There we go. That's better. A little bit of spit. Push it down. And you can kind of see that I've got the adhesive going up the sides a bit on this housing. I just didn't put the adhesive on the top of this cover. It doesn't do any good. You've got to get a bond going down on the side of this housing. And it will kind of grab around the cover like this and hold the cover in place. And that looks pretty good to me. This stuff takes about 15-20 minutes for it to cure and dry, so I won't mess with anything until this is fully set. I'd hate to put my key in there and start turning on it and then end up having this thing fall apart, and then I've got to start over again because I was rushing the job a little. So I've got everything back together. My epoxy's dry. Put my key in, and now when I turn the key, I get maybe less than a quarter turn on it. It's consistent every time. That detent block is back in place. The spring's doing its job. The cover's holding it all together. And I'm ready to put this passenger's door handle assembly back in the car. This is a pretty simple job. The difficult part I really had with this was finding the pieces that fell down inside the door. And of course the bad luck was I was missing a spring. Once again, if you have the same problem and you're missing your spring, Granger's has this. You get a package of 10. It was like less than 10 bucks, I think. I can't remember. I ordered it 2 months ago, and I've been taking my time trying to get other parts in, so I only have to go inside the store once to fix stuff. So I've got everything back together. My handles back in place. Everything's attached. Replace the gasket underneath this black plastic trim panel. And the last thing I'm going to do before I close everything up is I want to make sure that this is going to work as advertised. So I turn the key. There we go. And I can hear the driver's side working. I can hear the trunk working. So before you put all your panels back together, don't be that guy who puts it together and then finds out he left something disconnected and has to take it apart twice. That concludes my video on how to fix a door lock on a 2001 BMW Z3. I'd like to apologize at the end of this video for some of the footage that I shot. I don't do this for a living. I'm not an audio-visual type guy. I'm a mechanic by trade. And when I'm trying to film some of this stuff, I've got a camera practically in my lap or one hand or over my shoulder, and I'm trying to look at what I'm filming, and I'm trying to look at the camera at the same time. I'm trying to multitask, and it's really hard for me to see things that are out of focus. I know in a couple of the shots it gets a little bit blurry. I apologize. I didn't notice that until, of course, it's 8 o'clock at night. The car's all back together, and it's kind of late for me to try to do anything about it. I moved the part out of frame on the camera. Apologize for that. Hopefully I got enough stuff in focus, or it wasn't too badly out of focus to where if you're watching a video trying to see how to do this job, you didn't miss too much because of my incompetence. And thanks for watching. I'm planning on making some more of these little videos as I fix things on my car, fix things around my house, maybe even at work. And I'm hoping that somebody finds this useful. If you decide to tackle a job, good luck. Take care.